Welcome into Hittin Hard with Jon Chuckery here on Locked On Sports Atlanta. Today on the show, defense led the way, room to improve, and just like we've been telling you, it's all next. It's Hittin Hard with Jon Chuckery, Locked On Sports Atlanta.
This is Hittin Hard with Jon Chuckery, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, and it starts now.
Hittin Hard is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We ask you to subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Get the latest episodes of Hittin Hard as soon as they become available. Also, check us out on the Sirius XM app and give me a follow on my personal Twitter page at JMCH316. Well, as the second day of joint practices took place yesterday in Miami against the Dolphins as we get ready for preseason game number one, defense really led the way for the Falcons yesterday. Now, the offense kind of had its struggles, and Desmond Ridder had his struggles and such like that. But the defense really did lead the way. And when you look at what some of the NFL analysts had to say, Cameron Wolfe, for instance, after 2 days of joint practices, I came away impressed with the Falcons' new look defense. They didn't back down to the challenge of the Dolphins' uber-talented and speedy offense. GM Terry Fontenot rebuilt the defense on all three levels through free agency and the draft, a team to watch this year. And look, that was sort of the theme of the day, was the idea of the defensive backs being able to break up passes and have good coverage. They got a couple of sacks. They caused the turnover. Troy Anderson caused the turnover. Like, there were things about this defense that, say what you will, look, it wasn't like the Dolphins were out there bird dogging it, right? Like they weren't just kind of, lollygagging their way through that practice session yesterday. They wanted to prove that they're one of the top offenses. They wanted to show what they had, and the Falcons held their own defensively. Now, look, I understand in the grand scheme of things, this is just a couple of hours of practice, on an early August, afternoon to get ready for the season. In the grand scheme of things, it doesn't mean a whole lot. But I would much rather have reports coming out of Miami that the defense was playing well and this and that versus, the Falcons couldn't keep up with the Dolphins offense. Because the Falcons did win defensively on the 11-11s. 11 on 11s. Their defense took it to Miami. And this is what we're hoping for, right? This is hopefully the first sign, the first step to getting to where we want to be defensively. And not just a run defense or pass defense, but again, we have to sack the quarterback. I'm a broken record on this because we don't affect the game at the most important parts, on our defensive line. And if we can't do that, we're going to be in trouble. You're not going to have Terrell and Okudah and Clark Phillips and, Mike Hughes. You're not going to have those guys cover everybody for 7 seconds. It's not what's going to happen. You can tell me about all the safeties and corners we got. They ain't going to cover them for 7 or 8 seconds if they can't get to the quarterback. So again, it's all encouraging signs that point to the idea. And we're going to talk about here one of the areas that the Falcons can greatly improve in, but it all points to the idea that there's a more aggressive style. And I like the fact that, yesterday there was some chippiness to it. Again, they were going after one another. And look, this happens because this is your first chance to get to hit somebody with a different colored hat than you, right? So this is always naturally going to happen. But I like the idea that there was some chippiness to it. There was a play where Ryan Nielsen had to go over and break up, between a Falcons player and Dolphins player. Like, I like that. I like some of that chippiness. I like some of that aggressiveness. And the Falcons didn't back down. And that's what we want to see, right? Let's see if there's a new way to play defense, a more aggressive attacking style. And this was Ryan Nielsen's, from the defensive line standpoint of things, this is the way Ryan Nielsen approached, right? Now, he hasn't been a DC where he's, been calling plays and been the guy that runs everything, but we do know that he's the defensive lines coach for the Saints and has been for a handful of years. And they did have an aggressive tacking style on things. So again, I'm hoping that this narrative, plays itself out with the Falcons, that we have this new look defense, not just from a personnel standpoint. I'm not talking about just personnel. Teams add guys every single year, right? We were able to add more guys because of, now open, more money available and things like that, free agents and draft picks and everybody else we were able to add, but a new sense of how we play defense, a new philosophy about how we play defense. We had to have the training wheels on these last couple of years, and I'm not mad at Dean Pease for all of that. He had to work with what he had to work with. But where Arthur talked about having this is the first time in 3 years that he really feels like he has a roster to coach. Certainly defensively, this feels like the first time that we have a roster of players that can be something. Whether it's adding Campbell or Jesse Bates, whether it's adding Clark Phillips or whoever, whether it's second-year progressions of Troy Anderson or Arnold Ebiketie, whether it's some of the veterans, Michael Walker's been here a couple of years now. Obviously, the older guys, Onyemata, Grady, whatever the name is on the back of the jersey, this has a chance to be an aggressive attacking style defense. And that's one of the calling cards of what Ryan Nielsen wants to do. He wants to attack. And he talked about the idea from whether it was his first introductory press conference to what he's been saying consistently through training camp, is that we want to attack. We want to get after it. And they were a group that, certainly in New Orleans was able to attack the quarterback and make things happen. So again, I'm excited about the idea of the prospects of what we can really be defensively. Can we tap into the things that we need to do defensively? Can we influence the game at the key positions and important parts of the game? We can do that on offense. We can attack on offense. We have an offensive line that can push people around and attack and be aggressive, and they can run the football. And we know that that's one of the calling cards, I should say, in the hallmarks of our offensive line, is being able to move people where we want to. Now, can we do that on defense? Now, can we, on the point of attack on our defense, influence a game in ways that we probably haven't influenced the game in a really long time? Probably since the Super Bowl run, right? Where Vic Beasley led the league in sacks. Oh, that doesn't matter. Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. You can argue with me all you want, but if we can't get to the quarterback, we're not going to get where we need to be defensively. No matter what kind of personnel we have, no matter how many guys we have, no matter how many free agents that we sign, if at the end of the day we can't attack opposing quarterbacks, that's where it is in the NFL. And I like this style, and I like this aggressiveness, and I like the chippiness that I saw yesterday. I saw some of the videos watching yesterday. I like those kinds of things. I want us to be a defense that offenses don't want to play. I want us to be a defense that is confusing to offenses, that they know that they're in for a long afternoon when they play us, that we're going to attack. And now we feel like we have the personnel to do some of those things on all three levels, right? It's not just our defensive line. It's not just our defensive backs. It's not just our linebackers. We feel like at all three levels, we have that ability to now influence the game defensively. And it was all good signs coming out of Miami, all good things that we were hearing. And again, I'm not even worried about the game itself on Friday. We'll talk more about the game tomorrow. But I'm not worried about the game. I'm more interested in what the practices are, because that's where guys are going to try to shine. The game is going to be about guys who are going to barely make a roster or not even going to be in the NFL very much longer. Those practices were what really counted at the end of the day. And the Falcons defense led the way, and they shone, and they had a bright light on them that, again, this was a really good Miami offense. Could the defense hang? The Falcons passed that early test. All right, this episode is brought to you by Bird Dogs. And listen, if you've never tried Bird Dogs before, I encourage you to go to Bird Dogs and get you some pairs of their shorts. Listen, Bird Dogs makes you with their stretch khaki shorts. They're designed to fit slimmer through the hips and thighs and legs to give you a truly sculpted look. So Here's what they've got. Instead of the old, stiff, restrictive cotton types of shorts, they now have this cloud knit fabric that looks great on you, where it also stretches to fit way slimmer than traditional shorts. And you don't sacrifice movement as well. Plus, they've got the anti-stink sweat wicking fabric that keeps you cool and dry all day long. And these things are comfortable, they stretch for it. And now here's what you can do is if you head to birddogs.com/locked on, that's birddogs, birddogs.com/LOCKEDON, and enter the promo code locked on, LOCKEDON, you're going to get a free white tech hat with your order. That's birddogs.com/locked on, LOCKEDON. Enter promo code locked on for a free white tech hat. These shorts are fabulous. I wear them all the time. We now have a couple of sample pairs that we've gotten. They're fabulous. They stretch. They fit good. They fit good through your hips and legs. You'll look great in your bird dogs. And more importantly is you're not going to want to take those off. They promise. Head to birddogs.com/locked on today and claim your free white tech hat. So here's one area where there is massive room for improvement for the Atlanta Falcons, and that is the turnovers per game. So to give you some perspective on the last 3 years for the Atlanta Falcons, in 2020, the Falcons finished 17th in the NFL in turnovers per game at 1.3. That was tied with the Arizona Cardinals. So they were 17th in the NFL in 2020 during the pandemic year at 1.3. And then that number in 2021, that number went itself to 19th in the NFL. They were 19th in the league, excuse me, at 1.2 turnovers per game. So 19th, down 0.1 turnovers per game. But they finished 19th overall. Then we go to last year, where the Falcons only averaged 1 turnover per game and finished 26th in the NFL. So the last 3 years has been starting in 2020, 17th, 19th, 26th. Now you say, where were the leaders at? Well, most of the leaders were only 1.8, 1.9 turnovers per game. Well, what difference does 0.8 turnovers make? Well, over 17 games, that's a lot. If you can create 7, 8, 9, 10 turnovers more year over year, you're going to win more football games. That's a pretty safe bet to assume that if you create more turnovers on a per game basis and you accumulate more turnovers throughout the year, you're going to probably win more games. Because the NFL is not like college. It's not 52-3 on a weekly basis by and large. The NFL is all about one-score games. And our record a couple of years ago was pretty good in one-score games. In Arthur's first year, it was pretty good. Last year, it kind of fell back to the norm and fell back to the mean. Because again, when we don't sack the quarterback or we don't create turnovers, that's the thing is, you're going to find yourself in games where you can't make a play here and a play there to influence the game and change things around in your favor. Now, it's not like the Falcons can go out there and practice creating turnovers, right? This is about situational football and putting offenses in precarious or dangerous situations, whatever you want to call it, putting them in bad situations where turnovers become more likely, or you increase the likelihood of, creating a turnover. For instance, sacking the quarterback. When you can sack the quarterback, there's a greater opportunity for strip sack fumbles. Again, when you can put the quarterback on the ground and you can slap at the ball, there's always that chance that the quarterback is going to cough it up. Then you talk about down and distance with sacking the quarterback. The idea of 3rd and 3 versus 3rd and 13 is a world of difference in the NFL. And when you can put teams into obvious passing situations, you can be a more aggressive defense, not just on your, going after the quarterback, but you can play differently when you know that the other team has to throw the football. Your defensive backs can be a little bit more, ambitious when you know that they have to throw the football. So again, it's not a matter of practicing, the idea of we're going to, create more turnovers and this, that, and the other. No, it's the idea of playing situational football. Sack the quarterback, change up down and distance, force teams to have to throw against you, make obvious passing situations, all of those things. The culture of your defense is how that happens, and how it naturally creates more turnovers. And you can say, well, 0.4 turnovers isn't that big of a difference. Multiply that by 17. Again, the Falcons are finishing typically at least a half a turnover per game worse than where the leaders are. All right, well, add that half a turnover, and simple math says that that's 8.5 more turnovers. You don't think that that makes a difference and influences a game? You don't think that a couple of turnovers here in a game that can influence a game? Of course it does. Of course it does. So again, it's about culture and things like that when you start looking at how do we create more turnovers? Sack the quarterback, increase your down and distance, make an offense more one-dimensional in what they're going to do. All of those things. You don't practice a drill that gives you more turnovers, but you build a defense that creates a culture to where you put the defense in an advantageous position to end up accumulating more turnovers. So again, this is a big area that the Falcons can improve on, having dropped from 16th to 17th, 16th to 19th to, 17th to 19th to 26th last year. At some point, our defense, besides sacking the quarterback, if we can create some more turnovers, we can influence more of those one-score games that wasn't very good last year, but was very good a couple of years ago. And that's how the NFL game is played. That's where the NFL game is currently. One-score games. It's not 52-3 on a weekly basis. All right, as you listen in to Hittin' Hard, we want you to leave us a comment on whatever podcast platform that you listen on. Let us know that you're an everyday listener to the program. So we call them our everydayers, and we thank you so much for being a part of our growing community. And listen, we thank you so much for being a part of the journey in this ride that we're on. So let us know that you're an everydayer 5 days a week listening in to the program. So we kind of really have been talking about this and told you this for a while now. So ESPN writer, Fangraphs writer, Mike Petriello, Petriello. He talked about the idea of that the Braves, and the title of his article, here's why the Braves lineup is one of the deepest ever. Okay, I'm intrigued to see what this is going to be. So he goes through the article and he talks about all the metrics and stuff like that. Then you can look at home runs or RBI or on base or this or that or StatCast or whatever like that and figure some things out. But then he says this, and I'll quote, "But there's something a whole lot more fun happening than just all of that. And it's the bottom of the lineup. Atlanta's number 9 hitters at the start of the season, a daily rotation, but since late May, primarily Michael Harris II, have a 812 OPS so far. That's not just the best of any team's final spot hitters, though it's that too. It's better than 20 of the 29 other teams' leadoff hitters. The Braves are getting more production out of the number 9 hitter than 2/3 of baseball's number 1 leadoff hitters. And now you see what's going on." And he says that the Braves aren't just strong at the top or in the middle. They're strong at the bottom too. They're baseball's deepest lineup, and there's more to it than what you might think. Now, gee, if only somebody had been talking about their 7, 8, and 9 hitters. I wonder if there's anybody in, let's see, let's narrow it down to the Georgia area. Let's see, the state of Georgia, not the country of Georgia, the state of Georgia. Has there been anybody who's consistently talked on radio, podcasting, every opportunity? Oh, yeah, I did it a couple weeks ago on TV. Let's see, is there anybody that's been talking about the Braves' deep offense and the depth of their offense because of their 7, 8, and 9 hitters? Yeah, I can't remember now, so it'll come to me at some point that I'll think about it. But seriously, we've talked all season long about the contributions that their 7, 8, and 9 hitters get. And it's not just what those individual players have done. Arcia's had a terrific year. Michael Harris, by the way, is now a 290 hitter. Don't look now, but his batting average is getting right back to what it was. His on base is going up. He's walking more, striking out less. The power is coming around. He still has 11 home runs. So again, even if he finishes with 15 home runs, okay, I'll take that number out of my 9 hitter. And he can score 75 runs or whatever, steal some bases, whatever. Okay, I'll take that all day long. But the big thing that we have talked about consistently on the program is the fact that I know Ronnie, Ozzie, Riley, Olsen, those guys can rake. We know that. That's some of the best top of the order hitters that we have. But when you have your 7, 8, and 9 hitters that are consistently going out and doing productive offensive things, it's turning that lineup over. It's allowing the top of the order guys to create more at-bats. You're getting more plate appearances, more at-bats for the guys that we want to see, for the Ronnies and the Olsens and the Ozzies and everybody else. You're seeing more of those guys. Take an example last night from the Braves win. Braves found a way to win 6-5. Look at your 7, 8, and 9 hitters on this team. So they had 14 at-bats with 5 hits, 4 runs scored, and an RBI. So 5 for 14 with 4 runs and an RBI. Like, that's a typical night for this team. And when you get that kind of production out of your 7, 8, 9 hitters, which, look, in years past has been the vagabonds of the world. One is it's been pitchers in the National League, but 2 is it's been your, 212 hitting shortstop that has no power. It's been Buddy Biancalana or guys or Felix Fermin or whatever. Guys like that were all glove, no hit. Or it was that corner outfielder that couldn't give you a lot of production. But this team is so deep that when you look at the 7, 8, 9 hitters, you got a mixture of guys that are good batting average, good on base, power guys, run producing guys. Like anybody that you've put in that 7, 8, and 9 spots, Rosario, Ozuna, Arcia, Michael Harris, again, Sam Hilliard, whatever. The guys that you've put down there have all been productive in the bottom third of that order. And that's been the key to, why is Ron, the more at-bats Ronnie gets, the more you turn that lineup over where guys are, facing Ronnie for the 3rd, 4th time or what have you. That all leads to that kind of success. And again, I know Rob Petrelio or whatever his name is, yeah, he wrote about it and all this stuff. But again, you're as I always say, I'm giving you your talking points, 3 to 6 months in advance before anybody. Well, we're August and we were talking about this in, May. So no surprise that the Braves are the deepest lineup in Major League Baseball, and they're one of the deeper lineups in probably baseball history. I don't have a frame of reference, for all of that, but I'll let the writer, get into all of that, and he talks about that, as well. But these guys at the bottom third of their order have been magnificent, and the fact that they continue to turn this lineup over, and they're scoring runs, and they're driving in runs, and you creating more at-bats for Riley and Ozzie and obviously the MVP of the league and Ronald Acuna, that's all good news. The more those guys can hit, the better we are. The more we're not just sacrificing defense for offense at the bottom of the order, and we can balance things out, the better that it is. All right, thank you so much for making Hittin' Hard with Jon Chuckery your first listen. Be sure to go in and leave us a comment on whatever podcast platform that you listen on, that you're an everyday listener to the program. So we call them our everydayers, and we thank you so much for being a part of our community, listening in 5 days a week. We ask you to subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. You can get the latest episodes of Hittin' Hard as soon as they become available. Check us out on the Sirius XM app as well, and give me a follow on my personal Twitter page at JMCH316. We'll take a look tomorrow at the players I'm most looking forward to seeing come Friday night's Falcons preseason game. It's all next, and it's been Jon Chuckery with Locked On Sports, Hittin' Hard with Jon Chuckery on Locked On Sports Atlanta. We see you tomorrow.